As employees of the Jacksonville Fire Rescue Department, we have a lot to be proud of, and we hope you want to share your experiences of working for JFRD. Quite honestly, we would like that. But we realize that not all social media activity is rosy or is worthy of a like. Sometimes the messages and posts may become heated or even downright ugly. We don't like that. As a city employee, we do have some guidance on what is acceptable and not acceptable on social media. This video will review Employee Services Directive 0529, which applies to all employees. It can be found on the employee portal at insidecoj.net. Let us first define what social media actually is. Social media is a term used to describe a variety of applications, usually internet-based, which allow users to easily share content, interact with each other, and develop communities around similar interests. Examples include blogs, websites, wikis, discussion threads, and the big one, social networks. Social networks include, but are not limited to, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, and numerous other sites and apps. There are many ways to access social media, such as through the use of smartphones, tablets, watches, cameras, and smart TVs. At least 80% of social media activity happens on a mobile device. Online, you can be anyone you want to be. You get to decide what people know about you and about your personality. It is really all up to you. Your online persona, whether or not it's like you in real life, reflects on you and it reflects on the people around you. Your social media activity reflects on your friends, on your family, on your coworkers, and on the city. Why should you care about social media? The city's directive on social media applies to all employees, including those performing work on behalf of the city, such as full-time, part-time, contract, and temporary employees. As a public employee, certain restrictions apply regarding social media. Across the country, firefighters and city employees have been disciplined and terminated for social media posts. Let's review what is not acceptable on social media. Employees may not represent themselves as a spokesperson for the city or for JFRD. Do not create a link from your blog, website, or other social networking site to a city website without identifying yourself as a city employee. Do not use social media while on work time or on equipment that the city provides, unless it is work-related, is authorized by your manager, and consistent with city policy. Do not post any internal reports, policies, procedures, or other internal business-related communications of the city or its suppliers, vendors, contractors, or other persons who perform work on behalf of the city. If you are posting about city business or city functions, make it clear that the communication is your own opinion and in no way represents the position or interest of the city, its fellow employees, suppliers, contractors, or citizens. If you're posting about city business, be clear and open about the fact that you are a city employee. If you do publish or post about your city work, to help make it clear that you are not speaking on behalf of the city, it is best to include a disclaimer such as the postings on this site are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the City of Jacksonville or its representatives. Employees may be disciplined for social media activity referring to any city office, any city function, any city employee, or citizen that is obscene, that is false or defamatory, that is likely to create a hostile work environment, that is coercive or threatens physical violence, or is likely to create a real threat of immediate disruption at work. So why do we need a social media policy? Because on and off duty, we represent each other. When people know that you work for the department, they are prone to assuming that you speak for the department, even when you're not. The spotlight is on you. We also understand that your job is difficult, and we want you to succeed. And to help you succeed, know that we are committed to maintaining a cohesive, hostile-free, and efficient workforce, to avoiding dissension and disharmony among coworkers, to maintain the communication strategies of the city, and to minimize and negate disinformation, to avoiding comments that threaten community trust, to avoiding disruption of workplace operations, and we are committed to respecting the chain of command. Nothing in the city's social media directive should be interpreted to discourage or infringe on employees' rights to engage in protected union activity and to discuss their wages and other terms and conditions of employment. Let's dispel a myth. There are no social media police or persons tasked with monitoring your social media activity. However, if we are made aware of potentially offensive or disruptive activity, then we do have an obligation to respond. We value your privacy, but remember that your social media activity may be viewable by friends, coworkers, supervisors, and by anyone using the same social media site. If you are contacted by a coworker, a friend, or a supervisor about a potentially offensive or off-humor post, don't be angry. We hope that you'll be grateful that someone was looking out for you. What about freedom of speech? While employees do not relinquish their free speech rights, the First Amendment does not protect public employees when their speech interests are outweighed by the city's interest in providing efficient and effective services to the public. In 2013, a Howard County battalion chief posted messages on Facebook suggesting violence against persons who were advocating gun control. After complaints surfaced to the fire department administration, he was asked to remove the post. The battalion chief then posted comments regarding quote-unquote preventing butthurt, and he defiantly defended his post, referencing them as his political and religious views. Soon, other firefighters joined in these back-and-forth conversation, which led to disparaging comments and pictures being posted against the fire chief and against the city. In the end, the battalion chief and firefighter lost their job. Their dismissal was heard in federal court, which held that in sum we conclude that the department's interest in workplace efficiency and preventing disruption outweighed the public interest commentary contained in the plaintiff's Facebook activity. Regarding the chief posting internal matters of the fire department, the court also held that likewise we must also ensure that matters of internal policy, including mere allegations of favoritism, employment rumors, and other complaints of interpersonal discord, are not treated as matters of public policy. In these and many cases involving public employee free speech, the legal case precedent used actually dates back to the 1968 ruling in Pickering versus Board of Education. Marvin Pickering, a Will County school teacher, was dismissed after writing a letter to the local newspaper criticizing the school board. The federal court ruled that while public employees have a First Amendment right to speak as private citizens on matters of public concern, the government has an important interest as the employer in maintaining an effective workforce. This ruling gave birth to what is commonly referred to as the Pickering balance test, which balances and evaluates the interests of the public employer with the employee's right of free speech. The first question asked in the Pickering balance test is whether the employee was speaking as a citizen on a matter of public concern. The courts have ruled that when a public employee is making statements regarding official duties, then they are not speaking as a citizen, and thus their statements are not protected by the First Amendment. The second question is, does the speech potentially interfere with or disrupt the government's activities, which includes having a detrimental impact on close working relationships that are required within the fire service? In another case involving firefighter termination, a federal appellate court held that firefighters are quintessentially public servants, and as such, part of their job is to safeguard the public's opinion of them, particularly with regard to the community's view of the respect that firefighters accord the members of that community. Let's take a quick look at some examples of firefighters who were disciplined for their social media activity. A Fairfax County firefighter was disciplined after he posted anti-police remarks regarding recent police-involved shootings. A Columbia, South Carolina firefighter was terminated after suggesting violence against Black Lives Matter protesters. This Franklin County firefighter was terminated after posting racial slurs. A Toronto firefighter was terminated after posting this sexist tweet. As firefighters and employees of JFRD, we must safeguard our public image. And to help you safeguard and protect your hard-earned public image, let's review some best practices. While not in policy, they will help you avoid pitfalls. Social media tip number 1. Remember that your sense of humor is not universal. For every person who gets the joke, there will be 10 people who don't and may be offended. Tip number 2. If you wouldn't say it at work or at the station, then don't say it online. Remember that anyone who sees your post can repost, retweet, or screenshot a copy of it. And that includes posts made in closed or private groups. Tip number 3. Don't post or share confidential information. Protect your patient's privacy. Social media is not an appropriate forum for confidential communications. Tip number 4. Avoid mixing alcohol and social media. Tip number 5. Think before you post. Say it and it can be forgotten, but write it and you may regret it. Even if you remove a post, other persons may have screenshots of it. This concludes our review of the City of Jacksonville's Employee Directive on social media. Thank you for helping us maintain and bolster the positive public image that every city employee deserves.